If you shoot with film, this video is for you. No matter if it's a vintage Leica, Contax, SLR cameras, 645 cameras, Hasselblad or anything in between, you're always going to need to develop your film and then scan your film, especially if you want to share it on the likes of social media. Historically, I've used an Epson V800 for my 120 film for cameras like the Hasselblads and the Mamiya 645 you can see here. Flatbeds are great, but I wanted an easy way to use my digital camera to digitize my 35mm film and my 120 film. That's the topic of today's video with the Valoi Easy120 film scanner. Welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. If you're a regular viewer, you know I shoot with lots of different cameras, both Leicas and non-Leicas, 35mm and 120, and then I'm a model photographer. So I wanted to be able to scan my images for my models easily, digitize them for say social media, the likes of Instagram, and then I can also then use my darkroom to print any that I really like. But what I wanted was a easy to use setup for both 35mm and 120 film, and this new scanner from Valoi does both. Coming up, how I scan my 120 and 35mm film negatives with Leica cameras, and I'll explain this crazy setup. First, a big thanks to Valoi for sending me the Easy120 to do the review. I have had it for some time, so apologies it's taken me so long to make the video. The question is, what is in the box? So in the box you get three sets of tubes, which means this will fit pretty much any camera. Some of them are kind of screwed together, so it's kind of different widths, and then depending on if you're using like medium format cameras or 35mm cameras, and then depending on the negative size you'll need more or less tubes, and I'll show you. You also get lots of adapter rings, step rings, so you can fit it to your lens of choice. You'll need like a macro lens, and then also the light box, which will go on the end of the tube, as you'll see in a second. The beauty of this scanner is using the different film holders. Here's a selection. They pretty much sent me, I think, one of each, but when you're buying, make sure you check which one you need for your setup. So you're getting 120 film holders for the different, say, 645, 6x6, 6x7, and then also film holders for 35mm, and then that's panoramic and slide, as you can see. So you'll see me testing 645, 6x6 and 35mm, but there's also a 6x9 included, which was in the actual scanner unit itself when I opened it up. The next thing I needed to do was to work out how to use this thing, so I had a quick flick through the manual to try to understand the basics, and then I could attach my Leica camera. So scanning with a Leica camera. If you've seen my videos before, I normally scan with a Leica CL, which is an APS-C camera, so I thought I'd try that first. So here's my setup that I first tried. So you've got CL, you've got a helicoid adapter L to M, you've then got M to a Nikon F, because my scanner lens is a Nikon F Micro 55 2.8. Then I'm using adapter rings, as you can see, to attach to the helicoid of the scanner, which is this bit I'm touching at the moment. And then I needed to attach a few of the tubes to get the right distance away from the negatives to attach the light box so it would focus when looking through the camera. And then that's the kind of advancer to help pull the film through. So you can see me pulling the film through. And at the moment I'm using 645 film, and I'll show you how it looks. So there you go. So that's what it looks like on the screen. So I'm pulling it from the left and it feeds in from the right, and it's really simple. It's literally like pulls through in front of your lens, and then you can take a photo as it goes past. I think it's less than 4 minutes per roll of film, which is great. So this is what it looks like for the film holder inside. So that was 645 negatives. Now what if I wanted to do, say, 6x6 negatives? So obviously open up the 6x6 holder, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the 645 holder. Then we're going to slot into the same place, just in front of the light box, the 6x6 holder in the same direction, as you can see there. And now I can shoot some, or scan some 6x6 film. So I just shot some 6x6 colour film on a recent trip for one of the YouTube videos to Brighton. So now I thought I'd try with colour. So you can set your light temperature to either cool for negatives, for black and white, or for warm slide film. So you can have warm, cool, or say neutral. And then that's what it looks like now scanning C41 film. So the problem I had was, with the distance I had the camera set to the light box, the distance was too close, so I only got like a narrow slice of the 6x6 negative, so I needed to add more tubes. So as more tubes added, I could now scan almost 6x6. It's a little bit cropped from the tubes that I chose. So now I needed more negatives. So that gave me an excuse to scan some of my 2024 film that I've not yet had a chance to develop. This is the first of some of the workshop negatives from summer 2024 when I was teaching in New York. So this is all 645, so I was going to go back to 645. Now I'm going to try and shoot with the full frame Leica SL instead of the APS-C Leica CL. The actual camera I'm using is the SL2S, but I could have used my SL because both cameras are 24 megapixel full frame. Here you can see what it looks like on the back of the camera. I was trying to use different amounts of tubes to get the camera as close as possible to the negative to crop in enough without any kind of dead space around the edges. So here you can see me reducing the number of tubes to allow me to fill the frame as much as possible. Time wise, it's about 3 minutes 30 per roll of 120. So next we're at my Epson flatbed V800. So this is what I've used traditionally for all my 120 film and say 4x5 sheet film, and I know the results are great, so this is more like a benchmark. If you've never used a flatbed scanner, first you need to load your film negatives into a holder, as you can see here. So you have to click the strips down, and then on the screen that's what it looks like. This is with the V800 and then Silverfast, and then it's just the time. The time is around 9 minutes for 6 images, or 8 images if it's 645, which is over twice as long as using the Valoi Easy120. Here you can see me now scanning black and white. So this is again from New York last year. You may recognize some of those for the scenes. That's what it looks like. You load in your correct film holder, whether it's 35mm, 120 or 4x5. Wait for the things to come up. You then correct your kind of framing as needed if it doesn't auto frame. And then I tend to micro adjust my exposure and things in the Silverfast software, Silverfast SE. And then you zoom in Lightroom when to invert it, and the detail is absolutely amazing. As you can see, this is a 645 negative shot with a Mamiya 645. I'll try and bring up some footage if I can find some. And yeah, it's just, I love the details from medium format compared to say 35mm film, especially for like bigger scenes. Okay, so I think my preferred setup is like SL2S. We then got an L to M helicoid adapter from Light Lens Lab, so I can extend this to fine tune. And then I've got the camera on its end because the negatives I'm shooting are vertical, so that tries to allow me to fill my scan like digital sensor size with as much negative as possible. That was the theory. Hence it's a bit kind of jimmied up on various bits, so excuse the kind of jimmy rigging setup just to test it. And then I've got the lens. I've tried it at f8 and f5.6, and if you saw my 35mm video where I did the Valoi Easy120, as you can see here, I found f5.6 to be the sharpest on this particular lens. And if you see that video, I'll link it at the end. I also test this lens against the Leica macro 60mm lens, so check out that video after this if you want to see the results of that. Okay, so that's my preferred camera setup, but what about if we do V800 versus Leica? So for 120 film, if we scan the negatives in, first you're going to need to invert them in Lightroom. I sell my preset which inverts them if you want a preset to do that. So this inverts them, and then you can see if you crop in, to my eyes, comment below if you might need to pause some of these, it's quite quick. If you zoom in, the Epson V800 sharpness is slightly sharper than the SL2S in pretty much every image. And that's because it's the SL2S is only 24 megapixels and doesn't fill the whole frame compared to the V800, which fills the entire kind of, you're scanning to the size of the negative, which makes it much easier. CL versus SL2S, I'd say they're fairly similar. Let me know in the comments below which you think is better. Now, what about for 35mm? So as you know, this is often a Leica related channel. I love my Leica cameras, and normally I shoot 35mm film compared to say 120. So the most important thing for me is 35mm. In the past, I used the Valoi Easy35, and I've used that ever since it's kind of been released. And I've used it on the Leica CL camera, the APS-C. Now the beauty of the Valoi Easy120 is I can also scan 35mm film if I use the 35mm film holder. So first I wanted to test it using my Leica CL APS-C camera with the same lens setup on the 35mm film. So I'd attach the duster on the end, which is like an extra you can get, which is what I use on the Easy35, and that removes the dust, so you never have any dust issues when using the Valoi scanners compared to using other kind of digitized scanning setups. That makes it much easier and kind of much more streamlined for your processing. This is what it looks like when you're pulling the film through the 120 scanner using 35mm film this time. You can see with 35mm, because the dimensions of the film is the same as the digital camera sensor, well, in terms of full frame or APS-C Leicas, as you can see here, you fill the frame completely, there's no dead space, and so you're getting a much higher resolution negative scan. The problem with trying to use the SL or SL2S is I didn't have enough extension tubes to fill the frame of the SL2S with the full negative size, so therefore I didn't have any benefits of the SL2S over the CL. In real terms, if I bring up an image, what it looks like is with the SL2S you have dead space around the side of each negative, whereas with the CL I didn't. Let me show you some real examples from my recent shoot in Gdansk. If you didn't see the last video, I was both running in Gdansk for the 1930s Leica 1C, as you can see there, and I was also doing my model shoots and teaching a workshop with my Leica M7 film camera. So what you're going to see in a second is negatives from this workshop or these photo shoots with the Leica M7 and Leica 1C, all scanned with the Leica CL using the Valoi Easy120 and the 35mm film holder. If you don't follow me on the likes of the blog or Flickr, I'll put some links below. Follow me on there, because then you can view these images full resolution and decide for yourself if you're happy with the quality of the images before maybe considering getting the Valoi Easy120. For me, for 35mm especially, it's more than good enough, and I was really happy. I mean, just look at this. If you zoom in, the detail is crazy. For me, 24 megapixels is more than enough for scanning 35mm film, but for 120 film, sometimes it'd be better with a higher resolution digital camera. For fellow Leica fans, I'd probably choose the Leica SL3 as my first choice, 60 megapixels, or the SL2, 47 megapixels. The advantage of the SL system is its L mount, so it's much easier to adapt lenses to it, and you can use the L to M helicoid. If not, you can use M cameras such as the M11, which is also 60 megapixels. This is a bit more difficult to adapt macro lenses to. It's not impossible. Sadly, I own none of the mentioned cameras, so I needed to get creative. The CL is 24 megapixels, the SL2S is 24 megapixels. I was like, I need something with more megapixels. And then I remembered I've got my Hasselblad H3D, which has got a 39 megapixel digital back. Excuse the finger marks. But if you know anything about normal cameras and lens setups, there's no way I can get this lens to focus close enough to work on the scanner. And this is like a autofocus lens. So like if I can adapt a lens to the Hasselblad H camera, then maybe I can get closer. So then I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I can use like a Hasselblad V-mount camera lens, so a Hasselblad 500 lens basically. So this is a 120 macro lens, and then I just happen to already have the Hasselblad V to H adapter, so basically V lenses on Hasselblad H cameras. And then I'm like, but then the problem with Hasselblad is their bayonet fits the old CF lenses, so then you need it gets even more complicated. So then I needed a Hasselblad bayonet B60 bayonet to thread adapter, so got that. And then I'm like, probably need to focus even closer than the minimum focus distance of the macro lens. So then I've got the macro adapter tube, extension tube, also Hasselblad. So let's put all these things together, and then we'll see if we can get better image quality or higher resolution. I think I'm going to need to add more tubes here as well to make it all work. So yeah, wish me luck. Okay, so I've connected the Hasselblad H3D with a 39 megapixel high resolution back, and it's a big sensor. It's bigger than the modern, say, X2D sensors. The actual sensor size is massive. Then got an extension tube. I've got the 120 macro lens. I then added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, all the tubes. And it now focuses, but it's a little bit ridiculous. And worse than that, I need a much deeper extension macro tube, probably this deep, to be able to bring the image close enough to make it good enough for scanning. Try and get it to focus. As you can see, I've got the focus, but that's what you're going to see in the photo. So there's all that dead space to the left and the right of the film scan, so it's not really a benefit compared to 35mm. In fact, it's probably even worse if I did it as it is now and then cropped it from that kind of view. So that's the medium format scan idea setup, but I think that's a fail. So next I'll probably try using the same negatives as we've got here from New York from the workshops last year, and then try and scan those with the V800, and then we can finally decide V800 versus a 24 megapixel camera, either the SL2S or the older APS-C Leica CL. So in conclusion, after testing lots of different things, APS-C Leica CL, full frame Leica SL2S, and even the Hasselblad with a macro lens, my results are, and then comparing all of that to the flatbed Epson V800, my conclusion is, if you've got a digital camera to say 24 megapixels and you shoot a range of film, say 35mm, 6x6, 6x7, 645 in this example, and you don't currently have a flatbed scanner, this is a great way to get good enough results to scan your images to share online, social media, things like that. Also, if you're doing darkroom printing, then this is a great way to kind of check your images and see which ones are your favorites, which ones are good enough quality to then darkroom print instead of doing contact prints. I know that's a very hybrid setup where you're kind of mixing darkroom and modern technology with like using Adobe Lightroom. Personally, my interest is to do darkroom prints of my medium format negatives, and so I can use this setup to get a rough idea and to share some things online, and then I can use the darkroom to then print some of my favorites. Talking of prints and photo books, if you're interested in getting one-off handmade darkroom prints of some of the images shared in this video, I'll put a link below to like a waiting list or interest list. Click the link, add your email address and answer the few quick questions, and then if I do make any handmade prints, I can get in touch and let you know to see if you're interested. Thanks to Valoi for sending me this unit. Hope you enjoyed the video, and to see a review of the Valoi Easy120, check out this video next.